President Trump just announced that going to church is now considered essential. I thought that happened in 1776.
They're using fascist tactics to shut down free speech here in America. They are the real fascists, you can tell. Just take one look at them.
They want to destroy our very way of life. And if you wanted to fight, well, you've got one.
Hey, what's going on, Gab TV? I wanted to do a quick stream here and talk about Rick Wilson's Twitter thread. Rick Wilson is the co-founder of the Lincoln Project, the group of Republicans formed to stop a Republican president from being elected. What? These guys are not Republicans. They're all rhinos. They're all fakes. Another co-founder of the Lincoln Project was reported in the New York Times as sexually harassing dozens of men online for years, including one as young as 14 years old. The guy's a pedophile. Rick Wilson is one of the co-founders of the pedophile Lincoln Project. He is heavily invested in the January 6th insurrection meandering prosecution, and he's unhappy that it's not going forward the way that he wants. He says he has some bad news. After multiple calls, I have some extremely grim news. As of now, the 1-6 Commission is dead already and will not enforce the subpoenas. Trump wins. The 1-6 terror plot will go unexamined and unpunished. To say I'm livid is putting it mildly. This is staffed wrong, led wrong, and a gutless exercise to get back to talking about infrastructure. They're not taking the risk seriously, and they're not taking the data before them seriously. They're eager to run out the clock. Livid. I'm told that the whole plan is to bring in academics and examine the information from that day, when it should be a law enforcement intelligence community-style counterterrorism investigation. The leadership has already decided to slow roll it and write a tisk-tisk memo at the end. They're afraid of the First Amendment implications. The F? How about being afraid of a mob coming to effing kill you? Democrats, never tell me again, we got this, because you don't have this. Stay locked in your bubble that the modern GOP won't have a mob of Bannon's terrorists burn you to the ground and piss on your ashes. An unfinished coup is a training exercise. End. What a hypocrite. You know, this is the type of guy that would have called people fighting in the bushes in 1776 terrorists. He would have called the guys fighting against the redcoats terrorists. That's this guy right here. Rick Wilson, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, and he sits here and calls us terrorists, calls everybody who attended January 6th a bunch of terrorists, says that a unfinished coup is a training exercise, but he didn't say any of that when it came to the Kavanaugh protests, the people who were interrupting the Senate confirmation hearings for Brett Kavanaugh when he was being confirmed. You can see people here. Here's the Senate, and you have person after person after person interrupting the confirmation hearings. There's Mike Lee. Look, here's another one. This video is just person after person interrupting the Senate confirmation hearing for Brett Kavanaugh. Nobody made it that far during January 6th. They never made it into Congress. They never made it to interrupt Mike Pence counting the electoral votes. Just didn't happen. Ashli Babbitt got killed before they could get into that room. Nobody interrupted anything. Here's the Kavanaugh. And in the other part of this, you have glowing media coverage. All the mainstream media, when these protesters took over the Capitol and they occupied the Capitol, that's what they called it, occupy the Capitol, because they didn't want Brett Kavanaugh confirmed to the Supreme Court. This was celebrated as First Amendment. This is their First Amendment rights in action. This is people exercising their First Amendment rights. Here is the people.
These are live images, folks, at the doors of the Supreme
Court. They're pounding on the doors there. Look at these people. These aren't terrorists? These aren't terrorists, Rick Wilson?
These are live images, folks, at the doors of the Supreme Court, where you can see protesters have gathered. They are demanding that.
See, these are just protesters. These aren't terrorists. These aren't insurrectionists that occupied the Capitol back in 2018. These are just simple protesters exercising their First Amendment rights. You see, when you're on one side of the aisle, you're just protesters. You can burn cities down. You can firebomb the courthouse in Portland for 9 months. You can take over an entire 8 square city blocks in Seattle and make your own autonomous country when you're on the other side of the aisle. But if you march on D.C., if you go and speak out and raise your voice at a school board meeting, you are declared a terrorist. Did Rick Wilson tweet about Kavanaugh's protesters interrupting the proceedings at the Capitol? No, he didn't. He simply tweeted jokes like, Ivanka's going to talk Donald Trump into dumping Kavanaugh. Daddy, Merrick Garland seems nice. Please, Daddy? Merrick Garland? The guy who just declared conservative parents as terrorists for speaking out at school board meetings? That's your idea of a good Supreme Court nominee, Rick Wilson? I'm sorry, this guy is not a Republican. He is a fake. He's a fraud. He is as much a fake as Becky Edwards running here in Utah for the Senate to run against Mike Lee, the woman who's encouraging Democrats to register as Republicans just to vote for her in the primary. The woman who's totally obsessed with climate change, and she tweets about the January 6th insurrection as well. He's just as big a fraud as she is. This is the main problem we have in this country. We have a bunch of frauds claiming to be Republicans, forming things like the Lincoln Project, which is a fake organization full of fake Republicans. And pedophiles, for that matter. Be sure to keep speaking out. We got to keep showing up to our school board meetings. We got to keep showing up to city council meetings. We got to keep showing up and taking over state government and city government, because if we don't take over from the ground level, then we're never going to be fixing the issues in Washington, D.C. We can forget about who's in the White House next if we don't take over at the ground level. So that's all I've got. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to stand up.